The O'Reilly Factor's on tonight.
But that's what they're really upset about. America's now less white, less married, less churched, less conservative.
The left-leaning media says the Republican Party is basically driven by racism. That's false, but there is a huge split in the GOP. But Human Eye will analyze.
It reduces or eliminates most of the deductions and loopholes available to special interests and to the very rich. In other words, it's going to cost me a fortune.
Donald Trump unveiling a new tax plan will tell you who wins and who loses, according to Trump.
Tell me the most significant tattoo you have on right now.
Nothing I have on me means anything.
Also ahead, Jesse Waters going to a giant tattoo show to get some wisdom.
I don't think we're the same species.
I concur.
Caution, you are about to enter the no-spin zone. Factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. A divided Republican Party. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. With the resignation of Speaker of the House John Boehner, the grand old party again finds itself under scrutiny. Many conservatives in the House wanted Boehner out of there, believing he was a wimp, too much of an establishment guy. Talking Points believes Mr. Boehner represented the old guard, was not a reformer, and pretty much stayed inside the House. He never appeared with me on The Factor, despite numerous invitations. In a calmer time, a politician like John Boehner would have been acceptable to the Republican base, but this is not a calm time. Traditional Americans are watching America evaporate before their eyes. The economy's terrible. Now Wall Street's falling apart, and median income for working Americans has fallen on President Obama's watch. Overseas, what can you say except American foreign policy is a debacle on most every front. Of course, the Democratic Party denies all, and that alone should hurt them in the upcoming presidential election. Now, all the chaos is the reason Donald Trump and Ben Carson are leading in the Republican polling. They correctly identify the failures of the left and President Obama, and both men are promising to clean house. What angered some conservatives is that John Boehner never really showed much emotion about policy. He saved that for the Pope's appearance and talking about his own upbringing. Then the emotion flowed. But where was your outrage, Mr. Speaker, when 177 Democrats in the House basically voted for infanticide last week? Where was the outrage? Mr. Boehner rarely brought indignity to the table. He didn't seem all that bothered about the direction of the country. And that bothered many conservatives who felt Boehner was ineffective, a wobbly leader. Again, it is the job of Republican leadership to persuade the majority of Americans to do the right thing. Sometimes that means pounding the table and perhaps imitating Trump, who has mastered the art of the outrage. And that's the memo. Now, the top story tonight, new NBC Wall Street Journal poll. On the Republican side, Donald Trump leads 21%. Ben Carson 20, Marco Rubio 11, Carly Fiorina 11, Jeb Bush 7%. Big winner in that poll is Dr. Carson, up 10 points from July. Big loser Jeb Bush down 7 points from July. Governor Bush will be here on Thursday. On the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton leads with 42%. Bernie Sanders now at 35%. Look at that, Bernie. Vice President Biden 17. He's not even in the race. Mrs. Clinton continues to fall in the polling. We'll have the latest on her email horror in our third segment tonight. But joining us now from Washington, Fox News senior political analyst Brit Hume. So I have the poll, the NBC poll, and some of it is really interesting. Do you believe the country is headed on the wrong track? This is 1,000 Americans, adults, no registered voters or any of that. 62% believe country's on a wrong track. 30% believe the USA is headed in the right direction, more than 2 to 1. That's got to encompass liberals and Democrats in the 62%. So how on earth can the Democrats compete in the upcoming presidential election?
Well, a couple of things, Bill. One is that number has been upside down for many years now. And, you know, Democrats, the president won re-election. The number was bad. I don't know if it was quite as bad as it is now, but it was pretty bad. And it's been true for some time. And the other side of that, of course, is that I think that in addition to the people's feeling the country's on the wrong track, it's very hard for a party to elect its nominee 3 times in a row. So I think the election, at least on paper, should be the Republicans to lose. But the way things are looking, they may well lose it.
Why do you say that?
Well, I say that because I think that the party is badly divided, as the ouster of Boehner suggests, and as the nastiness of the current primary fight, the current nomination battle suggests, and as the fact that in that poll, for example, well over, or at least over 50% of the Republican electorate polled is in favor of somebody who's now outside the politics. In other words, somebody not associated with the National Republican Party. So, you got these 3 outsiders who are, they're running in the Republican Party, but they have no history with the party.
And
they're the ones that are occupying the top 3 spots.
Right, that's what's
Marco Rubio is tied, I guess, with Fiorina at about 11.
Right.
But he's the only one.
Okay, now, when Boehner resigned, and, most Americans don't even know who John Boehner is. You know that, Hume. They don't even know who he is. When he resigned, he said, there are false prophets in the ranks of right-wing Americans. And what he meant was, on the radio, on cable television, some conservatives say that you can shut down the government because of Planned Parenthood, that you can throw the anchor baby law out the window, it's unconstitutional, that you can do a lot of things that Boehner does not believe you can do. And he says that's doing damage to the Republican Party. Do you believe that?
Well, I think that a lot of the frustration in the ranks of the Republican Party has to do with things that a significant subset of Republican voters thought could be done and thought they'd been promised would be done, and that were not done.
Like the Obamacare repeal.
The Obamacare repeal was one of those things, and they expected continuing efforts to do that. They haven't seen what they think is anything like a sufficient effort to do that.
If you are a person who understands the branches of government and that you have to pass a law in the Senate and the House, and then a president has to sign it, and the Senate's hard because you got to get 60 votes to overcome the filibuster. Obamacare wasn't going to get repealed, didn't you?
I did, and what some of these voters will say to you, and I've communicated with a number of them, is, or they with me, I should say, they're not crazy about me, is that the Republicans should have run these things up the flagpole anyway, even if a veto that would be sustained was a certainty.
Well, there is some wisdom to that, though. And, I mean, we're going to deal with Kate's Law, and I'm going to do something on that tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll bring you up to date tomorrow on Kate's Law. But there is some wisdom to that. But you don't threaten to shut down a government or do a when you know you're going to lose.
Well, their view is that look, you got to understand, Bill, you and I look at those government shutdowns that have happened, and we see the Republican Party getting blamed every time.
Right, because that's what the polling shows.
And the image of the party taking a tremendous nosedive in the polls,
right.
You just suggested. These people look at what happened in '95 when there was a shutdown that the Republicans got nothing out of, really, and they see Republicans retaining the House the next year. They look at 2013 and they see a shutdown that that didn't last and didn't achieve its goal of getting Obamacare defunded. But then they see a tremendous Republican victory in the next election, and they say, "Look, these shutdowns are worth the fight." And the Republicans don't lose anything.
And
now,
I respect that somewhat, but
I don't. I think it's wrong. It's wrong because if you look at the polling contemporaneous with the shutdown, you see the Republican Party's
get hurt,
plummeting,
right?
Just get killed, and then the shutdown ends. People basically forget about it and are on to other things, and the election happens a year later. It's not much affected by it, but it's still if you keep it going, it's going to be plenty affected by it.
But I do believe that John Boehner's main mistake was he didn't show enough passion. He didn't stand up and say this is wrong. He didn't pound the table enough. And I think Republicans want a leader who will do that.
Well, I think that I would say this. I can't think of a Speaker of the House who ever did that effectively.
Well, Gingrich was pretty flamboyant.
Well, he was. That was some time ago, and after he became Speaker, that wasn't the image you had of him particularly, and he had an unsuccessful speakership.
All right, Bret Hume, everybody. Next on the Rundown, we'll take a hard look at Donald Trump's new tax proposal. And later, Waters at a tattoo festival. Did he get one? Up ahead.